Hey, Brick Mortar Retailers, welcome to this week's training. And today's training is all about margins, and I'm calling this one the Margin Booster Workshop. As the name suggests, I'm going to be tackling that issue that many of us retailers have about raising our margins and the fears associated with it. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But I'd love to know in the comments below, do you look at your margins regularly? Just put a yes or a no. Do you have problems in raising your margins? Are you a little bit scared or not scared? Or let me know in the comments section below if it's something that you do in your store regularly and how you go about combating that. So this is a presentation. This is actually the work. There is a worksheet as always with this. If you want a copy of it, just pop the word worksheet in the comment section below. It's a worksheet I go through with my clients, so I won't be going through everything in here because it's going to take quite a lot of time. What I want to do is just give you the overall high level concepts. You can take the worksheet and go and implement it in your store. Obviously, if you want some help with this stuff, then reach out to me. Then we can talk about how we can help you in your particular store in implementing these strategies. But the main aim is to start to get you to think about raising your margins, right? And the best way that you can do that. So the main problem that many of us retailers have, when we're scaling our business, when we're trying to get it from 7 to 8 figures, or even when we're trying to create more time and freedom for ourselves, is we know that we possibly need to look at our margins. And many of us don't really understand the margins in our store, This happened to me when I was running my pharmacies. Back in Australia at the time, the biggest pharmacy groups who were so-called dominating the marketplace were all discounters. And I thought with a couple of my businesses, I could actually go down the same road. And this was very much in the beginning when I first got my businesses. And little did I realize, only far too late, that actually discounting is a race to the bottom. Now, I talk about that all the time, but it's basically you're just eroding your margins. And I didn't really understand the effect that margin had on profitability. Sure, I was selling more product because the products were cheaper, so my revenue looked higher, but ultimately I wasn't making any money. And that was solely because I didn't understand what margins were within my stores. And it wasn't until I got a business coach that they helped me understand that. The other major problem we have is we face a lot of challenges in overcoming the fear of increasing prices within our store. So many of us feel, actually, let me just give you the example. I was working with a wine store the other day, one of the clients of mine. They're a boutique wine retailer. And they, it's quite a competitive marketplace. This is in a particular state in the US. And, the big competitors were selling all sorts of other wines. And they were really scared that if they increased their margins, they were going to basically annoy their customers, right? And they hesitated, and consequently they started discounting, which was one issue. But because they were keeping their margins the same, they weren't really making any money. And there's that big fear, the fear that they were actually going to piss off ultimately their customers. So one of the exercises that we got them to do, which I'll get you to do later, was basically they really had to look at, again, their target market. Like, we all have a target market. None of our stores, in fact, very few of our stores that we own in the sub $1 to $10 million range, can cater for all people. We can't be all things to all people. So we need to remind ourselves of who we're serving and making sure that we adjust our product mix to serve our customers, to solve the problems that they're coming in for. So this particular wine shop, they realized in the end, based on the demographic and what they wanted to achieve as a business owner, looked at their target market and realized, oh my God, we can actually serve people a lot better, because the other big retailers, wine retailers in this particular region, weren't catering to the premium to top end of wines. And they were just catering to the lower end of the market, the cheapies, nothing wrong with that, but sub 10, 15 bucks. So what we did with this client is we really got to understand who their target market was. And by being confident in your target market, you can confidently then raise your prices. So just just to reiterate that many of us are really fearful of price increases because we're going to piss off our customers. And I would challenge you that the customers that you piss off probably not going to be the right customers. And if they are the right customers, then you really need to look at your target market and assess whether they need to be your customers, right? So they're the main problems that I see many retailers making, right? And why does this happen? Well, it happens because we have a lack of financial education as normal. No, very few of us understand the impact of margins within our store and how just a small increase in our margins can improve our profitability. Very few of us actually do our market research. We don't actually understand, as I alluded to before, our target market and the problems that we're trying to solve for our clients and customers that are walking through the door. So, we've got no idea about that. We've got really poor inventory management. And of course, when you've got really bad inventory management, then as a consequence, one of the causes of that is really poor margins. And so the other problem I see, the cause of that is we've really got a short-term focus. We're solely focused on revenue without looking at profitability, right? If we're looking for that short-term gain, and that gain is an increase in revenue, we're really missing out on the big picture. So what happens? What are the consequences of all of this, right? So if you're not looking at raising your margins, if you're not thinking about this, so basically what happens, you're actually not, it's going to be very hard for you to continue to build and grow the business that you deserve, right? Because it's all about margins. So when you increase your margins, you increase your profitability, you end up having more money in your bank account, you've got more money to then reinvest in your business, you've got more money, in fact, to then start to pay yourself. So yeah, and it makes it very hard for you to continue to grow your business when you've got really poor margins. So if you get it right, as I alluded to, you get so much more money in the bank. You are going to have a business that's actually catering and providing value to your clients and customers a lot better because you're super focused on who you're targeting. And not only that, the big thing is there, like I spoke about a few weeks ago, is the value of your business goes up, right? Because I mentioned, and the value of your business is related to the amount of profit that you make. And so when you've got more profit in the business, you can charge a greater multiple of that, and then your business is worth more. So I know you're not wanting to sell your business, but it's something you really need to consider, because then if you've got a business that is worth more, then all of a sudden it opens up a whole heap of doors for you, right? You can go to the bank and get some more money because you've shown that you know how to run your business. You're constantly generating profits. You're constantly increasing profits. You can borrow some more money to start to then reinvest and buy another business and do all those kind of fun things. So that's what happens when you get it right. So it's really, I highly recommend that you start looking into this and do that. So this is many of us get stuck. Like, we don't actually know what to do to, how do we go about raising margins within our store? And there's a bit of a process that you need to follow. I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but I'll just give you the worksheet here. Basically, you should be running your POS reports regularly, figuring out what the low margin products are, and then increasing their prices. And the main thing is actually figuring out how to increase your prices and what you should increase your prices to, implementing that whole program, and then reviewing it. As bricks and mortar retailers, one of the, many of us is stuck in the day-to-day, and you really need to get out of the day-to-day so that you can start doing all of these things. But the whole review component is so important. Looking at the data that you get out of your point of sale system, adjusting your pricing accordingly, figuring out where you can move is so important, and I would highly encourage you to start doing that. So I've alluded to this before. You need to understand who your target market is. Being all things to all people is not going to work anymore. There are so many other people who are much bigger than us in the marketplace that can do that. Our e-commerce cousins, damn, Amazon does that, right? You have a tremendous opportunity to stand out within your catchment area, within your community, or where your store is. And you have a tremendous opportunity to solve people's problems way better than our e-commerce cousins can, and way better than Amazon can, because we actually have the personnel. We've got the people that that our customers can talk to. We've got our trained sales team, hopefully, who can fully understand what problems our customers have come into the store to solve. So that's really, really important, because from then understanding who you are serving, you can then start to really backfill, if you will, your product selection. And then really from there, you can start to make informed decisions, right? Just by going through. There's a matrix I've got on the next page, which you will see. I won't go through it in any detail, but you can work through that. So understand your target market, as I've reiterated, is so important. You need to constantly be analyzing all your categories. So make sure that you pull a POS report weekly, go through all your categories. Now, there's a couple assumptions here. First is that you've got your POS system set up in categories. Hopefully you have. I'd love to know. Put in the comment section below. Do you have categories? Yes or no? Set up within your store. No shame. But I know a lot of businesses don't have categories. It makes it really challenging for you to understand the data in your store if you haven't got the categories. And if you've got categories set up, are you maintaining them? Are your team members, your stock controller or your retail manager or whoever's in charge of entering in the orders, are they putting the products in the right categories? Right, that's so essential. And it's one of the major things that I work on with my clients, and it's something that you need to do ASAP, because the data that you have is only good as the integrity of the data, right? So you can't make decisions if you've got really, really crappy data. So you need to make sure that you've analyzing all the categories within your store. Make sure that you analyze them weekly, right? You need to get into a rhythm. I always talk about a lot of my clients, the main aim is to start to work on the business, right? So then you're not in the store on the floor. You're out doing all this stuff, all the big high level stuff that's going to make you more money, that's going to help you create more time and more freedom to do the things that you love, which is what I'm all about. So important. Okay, so let's keep going. So you need to make sure that you analyze all your categories. I think that's pretty clear. And then we need to start to raise your margins. So here's where we get stuck. Because we've understood our target market, now we've got a lot more confidence, hopefully. You've got a lot more confidence in the products that your clients want, your customers want. And as a consequence of that, hopefully you've realized that the products that you're keeping in store aren't kept by the big box retailers, and that you can then now charge a premium for it. You can start to increase your margins confidently. Now, what happens if you've got commodity items in your store? Well, you need to make sure that you keep a mix of those, because we understand commodity prices can be a really good tactic to bring people in the store. They shouldn't be the full 100% strategy, but they do form part of a product mix within our store, right? So yeah, I get that. You need to then start to develop KVIs, known value items. Tell me, do you have KVIs within your store? Yes or no? Just put a KVI down the bottom, yes or no. Known value items. If you're playing this commodity game, like for instance in that wine store, there are some wines that they've decided to keep that all the other big liquor stores keep, right? So they've made a conscious decision that they want to keep that. Okay, that's cool. So you got to be aware, people know the price of this one. So you need to factor that into your strategy. So perhaps with that particular wine, we've decided, hey, we are just going to leave the price as is, but we're going to use that as a way to perhaps get people into store. We know that if we bring them in, they buy that wine, we are so confident in our team members that they're going to upsell that person that's purchasing that wine, or companion sell or cross sell, or do all sorts of fun things like that. So every store, most stores are going to have KVIs. Pharmacies, supermarkets definitely have KVIs. Boutiques have KVIs. A lot of retailers, we've got this kind of thing. So make sure that you understand what these KVIs are, and then start to raise your margins. Now, when we raise our margins, we want to make sure that we raise them intelligently. So that means it's going to be very rare that you're going to be able to add 140% on top of your margin straight away from the beginning. You need to take everything into that matrix, right? I've got a diagram on the next page which will show you that how to systematically work through it. But that's on a very, very high level. That's what you need to do. You need to start to analyze your margins. And then you need to start to make some really, really tough decisions, right? Like, what are you going to do with these low margin products that you've got in your store? Do you get rid of it? Do you understand? Are these low margin products known value items, right? Is this a KVI item? And then so yes, okay. Then you need to ask yourself, how many KVIs are we going to keep within our store? It really depends on the number of SKUs you got in the business, how big your store is, so on and so forth. So you need to make all these decisions. Obviously, it's going to be a lot easier for you if you have a sounding board, and if you want some help with that stuff, make sure you contact me below, send me a message, and we can have a chat about your store. But you need to start to understand, what are we going to do with these low margin products, right? Ultimately, for a lot of my clients and customers, we need to determine if it's a KVI, and if it's not, then we just get rid of it. Get rid of that shit, right? Sell it out. Don't keep those low margin products unless you have a strategy in place, unless you've taken the time to think of a strategy in place. And you can do that. Okay, groovy. So yeah, low margin products, that's what we're doing there. Great. And the last thing is to track and measure, right? This is the hardest thing when it comes to running a business. Very, very few of us actually track and measure anything in our stores. And as we know, as I keep saying, what gets measured gets managed. But realistically, without having a system in place to track and measure, how do you know what's working in your store? How do you know that the initiative that you've introduced is actually giving you results, right? Many of us do the anecdotal thing. Many of us do this with marketing. We try one marketing strategy. We might do a leaflet drop, catalog drop, or we might do a round of Facebook ads, and then we're just like, oh, it didn't work. So either we haven't given it enough time to track and measure, or we're really just working off everything on our head. We really need to get objective with our tracking and measuring. And the only way to do that is to have some sort of system, some sort of recording system to track and measure, and then some sort of follow-up system, right, in with your workflow for running your store. And as I keep reiterating, it's very, very challenging to do that if you're stuck in the day-to-day. So you need to make sure that you start to create some time away from the floor to start to do these things. So anyway, that is what you need to do. So yes, this is a worksheet. This is a way that we track and measure. I'm not going to go through this in any length. This is what I do with my clients, but you can take a copy of this. It's very self-explanatory. In fact, as you probably realize, everything I've explained and everything that I do is very self-explanatory, but very few of us are doing it. And it's only when you start to get serious about creating more time, more freedom, more money in your business and not be a slave to it, that you start to take some action. And that's where you come and grab me, and we can walk you through it and help you with that. So yeah, that's the margin worksheet. It's one of the worksheets that I work through with my clients, right? There's an example there that gives you some sort of sense on how you fill it out. Cool. So in summary, time to land this ship home. We need to be bold. Very many of us are scared, of course, and that fear arises ultimately from not understanding our target market and trying to be all things to all people. So we need to get really, really granular about that and be bold so that you can start to make these price increases, and be bold so that you can be confident in the value that you're giving to the people that are walking into your store. It's a great way to increase profit, right? One of the things, as many of you know, I buy businesses, and one of the first things that we do, because this fear of raising prices doesn't just happen in retail, it happens in every industry. And so one of the first things that I do with my partners when we go in and buy a business is to look at the margins and start to raise the margins intelligently, right? And so it's a very, very quick way to increase your profitability, increases the value of the business, which is great when you're buying a business, because then you've not only increased your shareholdings, but you can actually go back to the bank now and borrow some more money to reinvest in the business. You're going to have more cash flow. And if it's your kind of thing, there's more money that you can pump back into your own bank account if you're into that kind of thing. Okay, so quick increase in profit. And the main thing is we need to get over this analysis paralysis and start to take action. So you really need to start doing this within your store. Get into a regular system of analyzing your categories, looking at it. I recommend to all my clients, they do this on a weekly basis. So you might think, Alvin, that's just a joke. Why would you do this weekly? But, right, we've got POS systems. Things get entered incorrectly in the POS system. even if many of us are getting electronic orders and electronic invoicing, things just happen. And if you've got no way of checking and measuring and pulling category reports and understanding the margins in each category, and then drilling down into why something's a negative margin or a low margin, you're leaving so much money on the table, and you're just becoming a slave to your business. And I'm, like I mentioned, all about freedom, all about profit. Woo! Okay, it's time to land the ship. So I hope you found that useful. If you want a copy of the worksheet, just pop the word worksheet in the comment section below. If you want some help with this stuff, just send me a message, reach out to me, myself, or one of the team. Yeah, we'll jump on a phone call, a Zoom call, and we can see how we can help and increase the amount of profit in your store by raising your margins. By the way, there's one, if you got to this stage, I didn't mention, some businesses think they can't raise margins. I challenge you on that. There's a lot of, you can in so many businesses. For instance, some of my pharmacy clients think they can't raise margins because of insurance companies or NHS. But there are so many ways and within our product mix that we can do that. So yeah, don't be blocked by that limiting belief. Okay, until next time, much love. Catch you later, and bye.